Hello everybody and welcome to Modern Barber Upskills Business Live with Jo Mills and me, Charlotte Grant West, the editor of Modern Barber. Today we're going to be talking about leading a business through a pandemic. We're going to be joined by Jo Mills, who is the founder of Jo & Co Soho and The Lounge, and he's got a whopping 20 years of experience in the industry. He's a columnist for GQ, he's the go-to session stylist for so many magazines and brands, and he's also the winner of Best Business Leader at the Modern Barber Awards. Lovely to have you with us, Jo.
Hey, nice to see you, Charlotte, again. How are you?
Really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good overall. Just excited to get back, working hard in getting everyone ready. So yeah, it's been good.
I bet. So you're going to be talking to us about leading a business through a pandemic, all the ups and downs from bookings to getting all the PPE in, and both the challenges and the unexpected positive outcomes of the last year, basically.
Yep.
So I guess first, it would be really great if you could cast your mind back to this time last year. And I guess it's when business were forced to close. And what were your thoughts at that time? Did you think it was going to be a couple of weeks? And where did you look to for guidance? Because this was such an unprecedented event.
I think on the run into the initial lockdown, I think, the general conversation was that this wasn't going to be a short term, 2 weeks and we'll be back to work. And I think that, it was an unknown. And I think that when initially we got locked down, and obviously there was the whole kind of, it was a bit of a novelty in all honesty. And I think for a lot of my clients and my teams and the people around me, that it was slap bang in we had good weather, it was the summer, and it didn't seem that hard. I know it was, and it was brutal as a business owner, it was really challenging. But I think that we kind of just went, oh, okay. And then, every night you'd be sitting watching the news at 5 o'clock, have a glass of wine or a beer, watching Boris or Chris Whitty going on about stuff. And it was kind of, I don't know, it was a bit surreal. And even is only 12 months ago, it does feel like a lifetime ago because so much has happened and shifted. So yeah, it was kind of, I didn't think it would be a short-term fix. And even coming out in July, I thought this was just the start of an ongoing issue that is not just going to go away. And in some respects, I feel that, with reopening on April the 12th, I do feel very positive about it. And, with the amount of vaccinations that are going on and the rates that have dropped, obviously, most of Europe are about to go back into different levels of lockdown, and we seem to be ahead of the curve in some respects. But I don't think we're out of the woods by a long shot. And I do think that we will be challenged in for definitely the rest of this year, if not into the early next year as well.
I guess caution is probably the word that everyone's going to kind of hang on to and tread carefully. And
I think it is. I think there is a word of caution, but I think that there is opportunity there. And I think that if look, it's going to be challenging, and anyone who's a business owner who's tuned into this or watching this will understand the challenges that they've had financially. The losses that we've had, in my brands is eye-watering for a small business to be focusing on, and restructuring and sort of reshaping what you do. But I think that you've got to look at that things will bounce back. Where they'll bounce back to and what your business will look like is probably a more important focus than whether or not you can get to the pub in June or go to a festival. I think for me it's kind of looking at the bigger picture and sort of mid-term, long-term.
Absolutely. And how have your staff been over the last year? How have you kind of kept in touch with them? Do you have regular check-ins, regular meetings and Zooms and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so obviously Zoom is super important to us, and we were doing really regular, sometimes weekly or bi-weekly updates. This lockdown, and we've got WhatsApp groups that are really active. So there's, I've got reception team WhatsApp groups, and then the stylists and the barbers in my 2 shops and 3 shops, and we keep in touch all the time. There's always stuff going on. So there's that, and then this lockdown I think has been slightly more challenging. For me I found this one a lot harder than I did the first one. I think this one felt felt a lot longer. It just felt like it was never ending. But so we've always made the effort to make sure we check in with everyone and everyone's all right. If anyone's got any issues, we will try to help. Some of my guys are self-employed that work within the teams, and we set up a whole separate WhatsApp group in regards to what grant funding was available and try to support everyone as much as possible. But it's just, some people engage fully in it, and some people are, they need their own time. So, it was always voluntary, and it was up to people to want to engage.
So, yeah, I guess it's very much a case of each their own, and whatever helps, but just having that kind of contact available if anyone needed it must have been a real safety net and reassurance to
my teams have been around me for a long time, and they feel part of my family in a kind of a weird kind of way. And we've all got, they all know about my life and I know about their lives. So there was a lot of even just private messaging people, just checking in, saying that I haven't heard from you this week, everything all right, that kind of stuff, as much as you can. Obviously, I've got my own family and the businesses to organise and get open, so my time is stretched. But I've always tried to make as much time available to those guys as possible, just so they feel supported. And the support comes both ways. A lot of the guys are helping me out and working behind the scenes on stuff as well, so it's a two-way street.
And what's the general mood ahead of reopening on the 12th? Is there a sense of know what's coming this time round?
Well, obviously, you guys posted up the latest guidance on stories, which I'd already seen. So I think we now know what we've got to expect. Obviously, nothing dramatic has changed. We've still got 2 meter distancing or meter mitigated, and PPE and all that kind of stuff. I think there was a kind of a quiet hope that the level of PPE we had to wear all day long would be less, but it is what it is. So visors and masks and goggles will be back, and screens and all that kind of stuff for the time being. So I think generally everyone's really keen to get back on the shop floor and do what we do. This is what we love doing, and we're all creatives and we want to get back to it. From a client perspective, we opened our online bookings probably about 2 weeks ago, the first month is pretty heavy, and then we'll see what happens on the other side of that.
Yeah, I know a lot of barbers this time round have been like, got to be really cautious about doing extended opening hours, getting extra stuff on the shop floor because of the burnout, and just learning from last time how extreme that was. Is that something that's been a consideration for you?
Yeah, we sat and reviewed it really closely, and we spent a lot of time talking to the reception teams and looking at past performances and where we were. So we did do 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, split shifts. It was really brutal. But not only for the stylists, but equally for the support team, like the assistants and the receptionists and the management teams. It was really challenging for us because we were pulling, really long shifts. And we sat there and went, actually, we now know that after the initial rush, there will be a dip, and then it will level back out, and we'll understand that. So do we need to really overextend ourselves from the get-go? And so we kind of structured it slightly differently this time. So we're open 6 days a week for the first 2 weeks, then we go back to 5 days a week, and then we've structured the hours slightly differently, just so everyone, although a lot of my team haven't been working and been furloughed, or are waiting to come back to work. So we've been mindful of that and asked them what they wanted to do, and worked with the team. So some of the guys have actually said, actually, I don't want to be full-time, can I go part-time? So we've really kind of reviewed what we do and how we do it, and what works best for the team and best for the business as well, and try to adapt around that.
Amazing. And clients have waited long enough. They can wait a couple more months for their haircut.
Yeah, well, you know what the crazy thing is, the clients have been waiting. But interestingly, I was in Soho I'm in Soho all the time, but I was in there the other day, and I was chatting to a friend of mine in the street, and he was just commenting on how many fresh fades he'd seen that day. And literally these two guys walked past us. And you know what, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I think that, a lot of clients have waited, some clients haven't, some clients have cut their hair themselves or had their partner cut their hair or whatever. And, it will sort itself out in the wash, in a month or so's time, we'll know where we are, and that it is what it is,
I like what you said before we went live about you can only control what you can control.
Yeah, so yeah, I'd say we would say just before we went live, yeah, so I've learned over the years of owning businesses and having teams and lots of different levels of business as well, that you can only, is to let go of the things you can't control. The things I can control and the things that I can influence, they're the things I need to focus on, and everything else is just noise. And you know, if you let it get to, if you let that become your focus, you take your eye on the off the prize, or what's more important. So yeah, so I've learned that you have to yeah, kind of take a breath and step back a little bit sometimes.
It seems like a very healthy approach to take, and I'm going to be taking a tip from you in this very busy day leading up to Easter.
Yeah.
So when you reopened last summer, and
Yep.
indeed this time around, and in autumn, Christ, so many,
Yeah.
did you find any challenges with PPE? And if you did, do you have any tips and advice for people watching that have got challenges getting a supply of PPE?
Yeah, so the first time round we were using we used one company that supplied our PPE, and they had loads of stock because they were supplying hospitals and stuff like that. So we were able to get it. It wasn't cheap, and you know, the cost to us was high, and some of that cost we carried over to our clients. So we have a minimum charge for everyone that covers disposable towels, disposable gowns, face masks if they want them, face masks for stylists, and visors. So we kind of, there was like a split of the cost, which worked really well, and we were able to get it when we needed it. Some of the masks that some of the guys like to use wouldn't always be in stock. We'd have to buy variations of, but we've always, you know, yesterday I ordered 3,000 face masks, you know, just, you know, pre-ordered, and you know, they're delivered later this week and early next week. So, but we order from 2 or 3 different suppliers now, and we set up an Amazon business account as opposed to a personal account, which gives you a little bit more priority. So we did that, and what we do is we don't order from one supplier anything. So whether it's our face masks and gowns or our disposable towels, we order from multiple suppliers. So in doing that, if one of them falls down and they haven't got it, you've always got another backup, and that's what we tried to do. You know, we did there was that slight issue on the first lockdown where we ordered things that we thought we needed and we didn't need as many of. It is what it is. It's a learning curve. This time we're a little bit more hesitant on, you know, same with even with our suppliers, you know, with our you know, our color stock, or with our barbers, with our styling products. You know, we did a full stock take yesterday and really sat there and went, how much of this are we really going to need, and was a bit more mindful on the spend that we put out.
So that sounds like quite a lot of learnings then from the last 2 lockdowns. Is there anything else that you've learned and will be carrying on from the pandemic?
From a business perspective?
Yeah.
So for me, I think, you know, we touched on this as well before we went live. You know, I think it's made me stop and think about what we do as a business and how we do it, which I've always been quite focused on anyway, and understanding, you know, what works and what doesn't work, and then what needs to change. So, you know, obviously through the first part of the pandemic, we shut all of our direct debits down, you know, cancelled everything, and then caught back up. And I think that what it made us do is really review all of our costings, where we're spending money, but equally where we're investing money, and where, you know, whether it's within training or stuff like that. So I think for us, it's a case of kind of, you know, being far more aware now, but equally within what I do as a business owner, you know, I think that this has given me a bit of breathing space, where normally I'm literally jumping from one project to another, looking for another business. What can we do? How can we expand? How can we change? And not really stopping and taking stock. And I think this time around, what this has given me, especially with the lockdown over Christmas up to now, has given me a little bit more breathing space to kind of go, well, where do I want the business to go, and what do I want to do? So that has been a very important kind of buffer that I've had, that I've enjoyed in a kind of weird way, that I've been able to sort of stop and think, where normally I've got too many plates spinning to really take that time out and sit there and go, yeah, actually, you know what, you know, do I really need another shop, or do I really want to employ, you know, or whatever. So it's been beneficial in that respect.
Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
yeah,
we talked about face visors and how you'd be glad to see the back of them. Is there anything else that aside from the actual virus itself, that you'll be glad to see the back of this time round?
Well, look, I think, I've touched on this in the past with lots of different people I've spoken to, that I think that what the pandemic and the situation we have found ourselves in after 12 months, I think that it has changed how we live our lives. And even we were just talking off camera about coming back to work and going back to the office, and how does that work? I don't think that, I think there will be some real fundamental changes that will exist for a period of time, whether it's about commuting to work or whether our clients and staff want to travel to work and how that looks. So I think that, do I see us going back to normal, what was normal? Yeah, I do, but I think it will be a bit of a long haul to get there. And in doing that, I think that it has changed how we live our lives and how we think. So, I don't necessarily want that to change. I'm not saying that, it all has to go back to as it was, but I do think that for me, I just, standing there for 12 hours with a face mask and a visor on is not something I want to do. It's not what I signed up to when I started hairdressing many, many years ago, but it is where we are. So it is what we have to do. So yeah, for me, losing the PPE and the screens and the social distancing and being able to shake my client's hand or give my client a hug, or that I really want to go back to normal. And same as all of us, seeing our family and friends and having some level of normality. When that actually happens, who knows? There's I know they talk about June as the final kind of hurdle. So fingers crossed that's where we get to.
And I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, where you're based in Soho, you've presumably got a lot of people in offices or open co-working spaces in that area. Do you think that's going to vastly change the kind of clients you're coming in and the days that they're coming in? Will people come in as more of an event at the weekend, as a treat rather than in their lunch break?
Yeah, so we reviewed all of our takings over the last 12 months and really understood and analysed down and looked at the client tracking and how it all worked. We all of our shops run quite heavy computer systems and we do a lot of analytics in the background. So what we found was that the initial July and August was very good, and then September and October it really kind of leveled back out, and we were trading at about 67% of a normal period. So we noticed that there was a shift, and in that shift a lot of that was down to the way that people were living their lives. So we noticed that a lot of clients weren't coming into town, because of, stuff wasn't open or they were working from home. And we had to really be mindful of that and understand how that would impact on the business moving forwards. So we had to make changes. We've had to sort of look at other opportunities and how we can make that work. And I do think that in central London specifically, and I don't know, I've talked to friends in Manchester and Birmingham and other city centres, and they're also slightly concerned about this. I do think that, whereas before they may have been working in town, so therefore they'll get their haircut, like you said, in a lunch break or stuff like that, or after work, I do think there is a shift. And what we've had to do is kind of be mindful of that and respond to that and try to adjust how we operate our business. So yeah, I do think there, central London is definitely going to take a hammering in the short term, definitely.
And kind of going back to the positive things that have come out of this year in business, have you got any others that you can add in?
Yeah, I think if you've got to look for positives, is that, I think from a community wise, I've had far more people reach out to me and communicate with me. I'm mentoring, I've got 10 different people I'm mentoring at the moment, helping them with their businesses, or even just giving people advice and stuff like that. And that opportunity wasn't here pre-pandemic. It probably was, but I didn't engage in it. And now that I've had, the thing that I've had is time. And yes, and normally I'm really time short. So I don't have time. I've always running from clients to session work to, brand representation or whatever it may be. And now all of a sudden I do have breathing space, and I am able to spend time with my family or my son, or, and stuff like that. So there are massive positives that I've got to hold on to, because, your glass is either half empty or half full. And it's very easy for both of that to flip from one moment to another. But looking for the positives in there is always key. And I do think that, you know, the financial losses and the impact that all business owners have experienced, it has been pretty brutal. And if you hold on to just that, it can feel quite dark. So you do have to look for the light. And you know, there has been, you know, I have had some amazing opportunities, and I've got some amazing projects later on in this year that we're going to be launching. And a lot of that has only been born out of the pandemic, but it hasn't been born out of, you know, just normal life. That's because I've had to pivot and change or think differently. So yeah, there has been positives. So for me, it's about, you know, the time that I've had to be able to look at other things. So yeah.
Amazing. And I think you mentioned your mental kind of work coming to the fore really in the pandemic, and we've got a message from Tarek, who I think has been in touch with you, and he said, legend Joe, massive support for you over this whole pandemic, can't fault him.
That's really kind of, yeah. I've got a lot of that. That's what I mean, you know, the network that's developed around this, and you know, the different groups and people that I chat to, and you know, doing stuff with people like Dom Lahane and various different, you know, I do a lot of work, you know, with other salon owners, and just, you know, that has been, look, I think the hardest thing is that what we do is cut hair, or, you know, whether it's barbering or whether it's, you know, women's hair or whatever, or running salons. And all of a sudden we've stopped doing that. And that's a real creative outlet and something that we really enjoy doing. And all of a sudden that, you know, I know that a lot of people have struggled with what do I do now? You know, how does this identify? You know, we're identified by what we do as a job. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that stops. So by having something that fills that gap to a degree, whether it's, you know, Tarek and I have been doing stuff for GQ or whatever it may be, you know, that's, you know, it's finding, you know, it's, for me, it's I found another outlet, I guess that's the way to put it.
Amazing. I think that's a lovely note, a positive note to end the session on today. Joe, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, and good luck to everyone who's been watching with their reopening on the 12th. And if anyone needs anything or wants any advice, shout out. You know, you can get me on Instagram, or if you've got my number directly, just message me. And have a great Easter, everybody.
Absolutely, second that, and thank you, Joe, for being so generous with your time.
Take care, no problems. See you later.